Beats, you are so freaking bossy. Just for you. Miranda, welcome to chat. Okay, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I feel like I would be irresponsible to leave CPU mining out of the equations. So, tonight, I'm going to walk through setting up a 3900X system, which is actually right back here on the floor, and I have hooked up to the capture card. Also, if you guys noticed, I fixed the scene so I can actually do that. Blowy repasting time again. Oh boy. If there's still bitcap cards, make sure you do the 100% speed run. See what you can get it down to. J Mining, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, anyway, I've got this thing mining away. It's a Ryzen 9 3900X, which is still my favorite CPU mining CPU, at least right now. It's kind of like the 3070 of mining. There are definitely cards that perform better hash rates. There are more efficient CPUs, but these things are cheap. They're really versatile, and they hash really well. And the main reason we're all talking about this crap right now is because of basically this. DJ, welcome. 22's in chat. Even I'll put that in there, why not? Welcome, welcome, sir. At 12 or 12.5 kilohash a second on RandomX right now, you're pulling in $2 a day per CPU. So, you figure maybe a 20-cent a day power cost or something like that at a regular-ish rate. That's a lot of income. So, we're starting to, crest the bottom of this cycle and come back up, and we're seeing a lot more of this kind of stuff where people start talking about profitability again. And even I'm going to talk about it at some point, because I don't like hearing about profitability in the context of, well, it's not profitable to mine because I need to sell to pay my power bill. But in a case like this, you probably don't need to sell to pay 20 cents a day to mine with your CPU. So the reason why this is currently happening right now, this time, there are different times, different reasons. ZEPH, a project that uses RandomX, is pumping like crazy. So the price of that means people FOMO, which means they pump some really high prices into entities like NiceHash, and you can juice a lot of BTC out of this, or you can elect to mine the coin natively and potentially do well on that too if you'd like to swing trade it or short it or something like that. So what I'm going to cover tonight, like I said, will actually be in the BIOS of this system, which I've got here on the cap card. And I'll walk you guys through how I set up a 3900X. The process is relatively similar for all 3 and 5000 series Ryzen CPUs. It's a little bit easier with 7000, but very similar once again. And then older Zen and Zen Plus parts, I'll have to kind of tell you guys manually because a lot of the features aren't there in the BIOS. Let me catch up on chat here before I do that. 22's hell yeah, as a pirate. Perfect. DJ Mines, I wanted to get my ZEPH rig going, but it looks complicated. It shouldn't be too bad. I think you've got a 3800X, is that right? Anyway, the setup should be very similar. I can walk through what settings I would use on my 3800 as well, if that's at all helpful too. So let me go ahead and close the shell. Let's reboot this machine. Let's bring up the capture card. And let me get the keyboard ready so we can go into the BIOS. Right now, that rig, as you saw, was running 11.66 kilohash. And it was pulling 104 watts at the wall through a 1000 watt gold power supply on 120 volts. Did I not turn on the keyboard? Oh crap, I gotta do this again. Beard looking on point. Thank you, Crypto KJ. I usually get really, really lazy in the winter, so although I trim it a little bit, I don't usually shave it off. Something like that, yeah, says DJ Mines. I have NiceHash in the CPU rig. Had to remember, the tuning in the BIOS is the same no matter what OS you use, so as long as you can stab some GPU in it, this process should work pretty well for you, DJ. There's some really high-level stuff that helps a lot. That's very easy. That's pretty universal. And then there's a lot more nuance to tweaking the rest of it to really eke all the efficiency out of it. All right. Sorry, guys. I didn't have the keyboard powered on, so I get to do this again. Miranda, worth booting up a few 7700? Yes, 7700Xs, just open them up, put them in eco mode in the BIOS, and let them rip. Those are pretty much the same 12 kilohash, and those are up about 110 watts. They're really good at mining still. Zen 4 is awesome. It's just the DDR5 platforms are not cheap yet. Okay, so here we go, guys. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. So the BIOS is going to be laid out a little bit differently depending on what motherboard manufacturer you use. This is an MSI, and I picked it because I hate MSI motherboards, and I think the BIOS is terrible. So anyway, what you want to do in a case like this is the default BIOS layout page for MSI. Most motherboard manufacturers have an advanced mode. You're definitely going to want to do that. You see it at the top of the screen here. It says F7. Go ahead and click into that. And what you're going to want to do is start rooting around in all these menus, which is just a series of enters, arrow keys, enters, and escapes. And what you're looking for, to begin with, is advanced AMD overclocking. And again, this is specific to AMD, and it's specific to Zen 2 and newer. So if you have an older Zen CPU, this likely won't be there. Or if it is there, it won't have the same options, so this won't be relevant to you. Proceed at your own risk. You have to hit accept because overclocking technically voids your warranty. But in here, these are the two most important settings in my opinion. And the motherboard will have them in a little bit different area from time to time, but the beauty of doing it this way in the AMD overclocking menu is AMD actually writes that code. It's not the motherboard manufacturer, so they have to include it in the AGESA. And for something like this, which is a 3900X, you kind of have to pick what you want. If you want balls to the wall performance, I would say probably set this to 3800 or 4000, and then set this to 1100 and kind of work your way down to 1000 until it stops crashing. But I like efficiency. Efficiency. So I have this set to 3.6 gigahertz all core, which is basically its base frequency. These are still very, very effective at that frequency. And then this is the voltage in millivolts. So 0.975 volts. Typically these are running at like 1.2, 1.25 volts. So this is a very, very big difference. And that's where the wattage drop comes from. So if you were to just boot this system up, you put the board in it, you put the RAM in it, you don't do anything in the BIOS, you boot into Hive, and you start mining RandomX with this, with dual channel RAM, you're going to be pulling about 170 watts at the wall. Oh gosh, Crypto KJ, don't we all? Yes, we do. IDK mining. Yeah, I just run them. Any CPU and any rig is mining, and my PC, son's CPU mining. Well, if any of those are Zen, I would recommend dipping in because you don't have to lose any performance to drop a ton of wattage. So unless you're actively looking just for additional heat for the winter, which I get it, but you should still maybe heed the efficiency warning. Oval tweaking. No, this is still overclocking because there's clocks in here. Techman YT, nice hash, really? Absolutely, yep. I will juice Zephyr on nice hash, I don't care at all. If you're immune to nice hash, or you think you're punny, you can absolutely go over to services like Unmineable or Zergpool, and you can do the exact same thing in exchange for some other token that you actually want. Crypto KJ, I have already mentioned that in the stream so far, but no, it does not apply to Zen or Zen Plus. It does apply to Zen 2, Zen 3, and Zen 4, it's actually easier. You can just go into the BIOS and enable eco mode, and then typically I will go in and change what's called EDC, which is the actual number of amps that the VRM is allowed to deliver to the CPU, and I'll change that down to a value like 80. So 80 times your voltage, which is maybe 1 volt, means you're allowing that socket to draw a total of 80 watts, which is a really good way of kind of still letting the CPU do its own overclocking thing, which is what PBO is. We'll cover that in a second here, which typically you want off on the older CPUs, because it really does start to make them crash. PBO has gotten a lot better as AMD has refined it throughout the generations, so I would recommend just shutting all that shit off, locking clocks, locking voltages, and setting it. So anyway, back to the old OCs. This is what I run for pretty much all of my 3900, 5900, 3950, and 5950s. For the 8 and 6 core parts, you will have to run higher voltages. So I'm finding on the 6 core parts like the 3600 and the 5600, I end up having to run those at like 1.1 or 1.15 volts. And then the 8 core parts, I typically have to run 1.1 to 1.2 just to get maximum hash rate out of those. Occasionally I have to drop the clock a little bit too, but 3600 in my opinion is kind of a sweet spot. So anyway, in addition to that, let me back all the way out, and we're going to go to this menu. So, oops. Advanced CPU configuration, here it is. So, you can find this in the AMD menu. You can also find it in the board menu. I recommend finding it both places and shutting it off, but you do want to disable Precision Boost Overdrive. The reason why you want to do that is because if you just change the clock and the voltage, you're setting essentially the base clock and the voltage of the CPU, but you're still allowing it to try to overclock itself, which might mean that your computer posts just fine, and it boots into Hive just fine, but as soon as the miner hits, the thing just crashes. And what that means, likely, is that it's trying to overclock to like 3.84, 4.3 gigahertz, and it just doesn't have the voltage for it. So you definitely have to shut this off. Like Precision Boost Overdrive, PBO, you have to shut off. Global C states, you'll usually see right beneath it. You're going to want to shut that off as well. That's essentially just power saving features. On Zen 4, so 7000 series AMD, like I had mentioned before, there is an eco mode, and that is in the AMD overclocking menu. So if we go to advanced here on this board again, you're always going to see, as long as you have a B450 or newer or higher end motherboard, you're always going to have this menu. And in here, you'll see another option later on called eco mode. You can just tab into that, hit enable, and that will... It says it'll lock it to like 65 watts. It really doesn't, but it will cut a ton of power out of that thing. It will apply a completely different profile to the CPU, and it will save you a lot of power without losing much for hash rate. Another thing I've noticed a lot on CPU mining content is people say, no matter what, you absolutely have to run dual channel memory with XMP on. You do have to run, in my opinion, dual channel memory to do RandomX, which is what Monero is, which is what Zephyr is. However, Ghost Rider, Raptorium, Bitorium, they don't care at all. Virus doesn't care at all. XMP, this one is really also a bit of a point of contention. I have found, and specifically on this system, I was pre-testing beforehand tonight, I was getting 12 kilohash on this thing with the RAM set no XMP, just manually to 2400 megahertz JEDEC settings, stock timings, loose as can be. And as soon as I enabled XMP, 3600 CL16 I think, or CL18, the performance actually dropped because you're pulling a little bit of the CPU's power budget away and you're feeding it to the RAM, which has got its own VRM, and you're upgrading that from 1.2 to 1.35 volts in most cases with DDR4, and that is a couple of watts, which you're pulling away from the CPU. So I've found that dual channel makes a difference, but like my test bench over here that's just chugging away, that's a 3950X, that's running 2400 megatransfers memory. Thing still hashes away like perfection. So if you are doing a RandomX coin, absolutely, you do need dual or quad or 8 channel, max out the memory channels on your motherboard, is you will get better performance, but the speed of the memory, in my opinion, doesn't matter at all. The latency, the cache latency of the memory does help you. So if you have a lower first number, like the 16, 18, 18, 24, those are cache latencies. The lower the numbers, the better. They will help you a little bit, but don't let it confuse you. Any RAM, as long as it is technically compatible through the vendor list on your motherboard, should be just fine for CPU mining. I have the garbagiest RAM ever in this 3950. I've got much better RAM in that 3900X. Doesn't matter at all. So I did see a question in chat just now. What about running these things headless? And that's a really, really good question. You, with a gigabyte board with an, let's see here. There's a few brands where it just works right out of the box. You don't have to tweak any of that kind of stuff. But I usually come in, where is it? VGA detection on MSI is what you have to do. So default, it's auto. You have to set that to ignore. As soon as you do that, these MSI boards will cold boot no problem right on their own. I will typically also, here we go, restore after power loss. I turn this on always, on every system, CPU, GPU. I even do it on my main PC. What that allows you to do is to use smart plugs to manage them. It lets you recover from crashes a lot more easily just by power cycling at the wall. But I really want, anytime I move a rig around, to just be able to plug it in. I don't have to hit anything. Just powers right up and mines. So that's a personal preference setting. You'll also see other integrated peripherals. You want to keep the LAN controller on, but if you have like an HD audio controller, you can see here I have that disabled. It doesn't draw much power just sitting there idle, but there's no reason to leave it on when you're CPU mining. So what we've covered just then will bring this system down from 170 watts to 105, and it will bring you from 13.7 kilohash to 12. But again, as long as you just move the RAM up, even if you leave it at 2133 default, fine. But you can usually bring that up to 2400 without touching the memory voltage. And that's really where you start to, lose efficiency bringing wattage over. So if you want to just dig in and save yourself some wattage, the only thing you really have to do, in my opinion, is come in, find the AMD overclocking menu, accept overclocking menu, and change these two parameters. If you have an A-series motherboard, you can't do this. There is still a PBS menu, and you can come in and set frequency, but voltage is done with like hexadecibels, and I don't really understand entirely how those work. I have found that like 3660, is that right? 3630? I don't know. It defaults to 48, which is fine, but that will at least let you lock the CPU clock, and you can usually still disable PBO with those boards. So you can save some power, but if you're really going to get serious about mining with your CPU, you really should have a B350, a B450, B550, or any X series motherboard, because then it will give you the full-on, full-fat control here. If you don't want to risk crashing, you can always just stick it at 1100 millivolts. You're not going to save as much power, but it's certainly going to be better than running at stock. And it's pretty likely you'll actually see an increase in hash rate because you're going to be pulling a lot of temperature out of your cooler, especially if you're using like the stock AMD cooler. This computer down here, I've got a very, very nice Thermalright Assassin in it, but the 3950 running up here has got an all-aluminum cooler from a Ryzen 5, and the thing is still totally fine. So anyway, let me save those settings. We'll let this thing reboot, we'll let it get back into Hive, and once it's back into Hive, I'll cover with you guys what I pre-ran and saw for wattages as far as system overhead and what has made the biggest differences from my mining setups. Alexandria Red Y, welcome to chat. Good to see you. Amplifier Gaming, I made my Athlon X4 200 GE mine ZEPH 1 kilohash. I don't know what power it is. 200 GE, it's a 2-core 4-thread. That's a little low. That's not terrible. I think I got 3.2 kilohash out of a 3400G, but that's 4 cores, 8 threads. John Germain, Bendy Arms, welcome. I do believe the 200G is a 35 watt TDP part though. That's not what it draws, but 35 watt TDP, so very low power. In my opinion, maybe not worth it unless it's running a mining rig, and that's something I want to talk to you guys about too. Leveraging mining rig hardware and not necessarily just full-on CPU rigs. I don't have most of the farm on right now, but I will show you at least a couple of circumstances and things like that. So in the flight sheet for RandomX, you can see the machine's already back up here. I'm only running 11.66 kilohash, but this system with 5 case fans on 120 volts with a big old cooler is pulling 104 watts at the wall, which is still quite good. I mean, that's down 65 watts from stock for 1 kilohash, and that is, in my opinion, 100% worth it. Oh, Greater Good Mining, welcome, sir. Heart right back at you. I've seen a lot of streamers, YouTubers talk about the flight sheets this week. This huge pages thing, you don't need to put it in here if you're running Hive or any modern OS. Why I'm saying that, every modern CPU that you can CPU mine with, RandomX, sorry, not RandomX, XM Rig New, the miner company, they know about that chip, and they predefine and preload everything for that CPU already. So just leave it, leave the donate level 1. The only thing that I think is actually really helpful for configs is when you start applying CPU mining to your other regular mining rigs. So for instance, oh, my whole farm is on because it's a weekend, hell yeah. So let's take Dan Frank, for instance. You can see here, I've got my regular GPU mining flight sheet up here, mining Flux, but you can see below it, I'm also running RandomX. this system, actually, let's check and see what CPU it has before I even show you that. So this has a Celeron G3930, the garbage dual core you see in literally everything. Let's see here. What I do, and this is the config right here, I'll dump it in chat just so you guys can see it, but if you put that into the XMRig new CPU configuration, it will only mine XMR on one CPU thread. And from what I've seen, and my data might not apply to your setup, so don't take this as gospel, but on a rig like this, I see a 3 watt difference, and I get about a half a kilohash. So that's definitely worth it. This is only a dual core 2-thread chip, so you could technically throw another thread on it, but these don't have very much cache. Intel chips just are not good with cache. Huge pages are enabled by default, ZEPH. You don't need to tell it. It knows. Like, hold on. I will show you. Actually, we don't even need that. We have the capture card. So let's hop into the miner, and then I will restart it. This 3900XC. Restart miner. So just watch here. You see this Ryzen _17H preset? It's defining that on its own. It knows what CPU it is, and it's automatically defining the huge page size. You can see 1168 megabytes plus JIT, and it's setting the number of threads that it knows it can handle. It will even preload on the flight sheet when you run this. Say you've got a 3600 or something. No, that's a bad example. You have a 5600G, and you throw a full fat XMRig flight sheet at it. It will actually know that that CPU doesn't have enough cache to do that, and it will only run something like 8 threads, which is enough to max out the cache, because really for something like this, you want to assume you're going to be running 2 megabytes per thread. So these Ryzen 9s have excellent big old stinky boy caches on them, so they can handle it, no problem. Up to you whether you want to leave one thread off, but if you were just using the rig for CPU mining, I haven't found that it makes much of a difference at all. Let's move over to Chunk here. What CPU does this have? Okay, so this is one of the old B75 mining cases that I've actually upgraded. I put a Xeon E3 1260L in this, which is an 8-thread CPU, but it doesn't have very much cache. And I found in this case it's actually better to enable 2 threads. So in that first command there, you see the 0. If you want to add threads to it, you just do comma 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4. So I found that this is really, really effective. For the older multi-core chips, you get roughly 400 or 500 hash per core on the old Sandy and Ivy Bridge stuff, and then you get 600 to 800 on the Sky and Coffee Lake parts. But again, I've noticed almost no additional power just running those things that way. So if you just want to dip your toe into building a bag, like say you want to download a Zephyr Core wallet and get just some coin from PPLNS mining, if you had 2 or 3 Octaminers or something like that kicking around, you could easily enable just a single thread of mining on that, and you would be able to get, 500 hash or something like that per rig, and it's not nothing, especially on super small unknown coins. So it's maybe worth looking at, but I don't know, guys. I really wanted to talk mainly about having a full-blown CPU mining rig specifically, just like this 3900X rig, but I don't know. You dip into a calculator, and you can say what you will about NiceHash. Use it, don't. I don't really care. I only use it when there's something that really has a huge order spike. But I got my start with this platform. It was after the big NiceHash hack. It's been fine since. I don't really care. I don't do any of their quick mining. I'm not endorsed by them. I don't exchange money with them. Nothing. So I just saw this. I'm like, okay, well, 3900Xs probably should come off of like Virus and Raptorium right now and just stack some BTC while BTC is still low. Keith Betts, welcome to chat. Other than that, let's see, Nerd Gears, Black Friday, nah, not that good. I wanted to look, these bad boys. Okay, the 3900X, not that long ago, just maybe a month or two, and I'm not sure if this is driven by the frenzy of Black Friday, like PC builders, but you used to be able to pick up one of these things with a cooler pretty easily for about $200. Now, they're coming up a little bit. So like this loose one just sold for over $200. Same thing on eBay. Like these used to be like 150, 160. Now the loose CPUs are selling for like 205. So I was just checking on these maybe 2 weeks ago, and they were all a lot cheaper. So people are definitely FOMOing into CPU mining right now. Yeah, look at this. This wasn't even that long ago. November 20th, $159. You can get 200 shipped with a cooler. So TD, welcome to chat. Don't go out and buy hardware for this, in my opinion, because you're going to pay way too much for it. But if you have like a Ryzen 5 3600 sitting around in your main computer, like these same configs will work in any XMRig launcher. Like you can just download the miner, edit the little .bat file, put your wallet in there, put this little config in there. You can limit it to the number of threads you want to. Like if you just want to limit it to 3 or 4 threads, you're never even going to notice that functionally on your computer while you're using it. And that's probably 2 or 3 kilohash on a Ryzen 5 3600 at almost no wattage above your regular overhead. So I don't know, guys. I have a bunch of 3900Xs. I've been CPU mining almost as long as I've been GPU mining. I don't make videos on it just because it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's boring, but it's so stable and you just set it and forget it. It's almost like an ASIC, even though they can hop around and do whatever they want. But I will say, since the merge especially, like a 3900X has always been pulling in at least, I hate saying it this way, at least 30 cents a day. And they only cost about 30 cents a day to run. So if heat is at all desirable and you're planning to hold the coin anyway, I always liked CPUs, but it really didn't make sense to go drop, $700 and build a CPU rig just for something like that. It's just when people start seeing pumps like this and they're doing the math, like, well, that'll pay off in a year. I'm like, okay, that's a bad way to look at it, but yes, it will. So it's just like investing. I don't know. Like I prefer my time in the mining game, not trying to time the mining game. Keith bets. I almost spent $1,000 on CPU mining. Instead, I just bought more 3070s. Hell yeah, me big GPU guy. So I like that. 1,000 just like if you did it clever and you bought from another miner that was liquidating CPU hardware, that might actually be like 2 full 3900X, maybe even 3 full 3900X setups right now. That would still be tempting, but I'm not sure. ZEPH CPU prices are stupid right now. Even China sellers increase the prices on Epics. Epics just don't give you a good enough BIOS. They're fantastic CPUs. They're still really efficient for mining, but like the China companies need to give us an unlocked BIOS, or at least let us undervolt the chips or something like that, because I've seen how Epics perform on RandomX. It's just not worth it to me. It'd be better off with a 7950 in my opinion, even efficiency-wise. Keith Pets, I use them to cool me. ZEPH, yeah, 1 gigabyte pages is missing. Try to add that extra param. Again, the hash rate is exactly the same no matter what you key in. It doesn't matter. It preloads based on the CPU. Unless you're running something really weird, like maybe those old Xeon E3 1260Ls, the mining software might not have any idea what those are, so it may not enable all that kind of stuff by default, but you're not going to gain anything by changing the configs unless you're clamping it down to a certain number of threads. Like, it makes perfect sense. So, like, if you are literally a software developer that makes CPU mining software, why in the hell would you not just automatically key in the best results? Because higher hash rate results in more hash rate to your dev account, so why would they not build it in? So, again, it makes no difference. Sorry as a pirate, sorry CryptoKJ. It doesn't make any difference. It preloads 1,169 megabyte pages, which is like 12 megabytes off of 1 gigabyte. Allow 1 gigabyte pages doesn't change anything. For efficiency, it does alter the hash rate a little bit, but you draw more power, so it's not worth it. Keith Pets, nice 1660 Super. Yeah, it's even malfunctioning. This is the one I just did the stream on last week, but dude, it is hot as balls in here, and the fans in that case, which is a sealed glass case or whatever, 55C. That's how you know it's barely drawing any power at all. Wonder if the 3600s are still on. I was working through getting my spare 3600s mining, so I went and picked up these disgusting H520M motherboards yesterday. I think it was yesterday from Micro Center. Dude, tuning on A520 or A320 sucks. I mean, I knew from the get-go that there was no overclocking support on those, but Sadie sometimes 5900X Maxi. Yep, 3900 and 5900X are still the sweet spot. 5900s don't mine quite as well, but they're way better gaming CPUs. Still, the 12-core AMD stuff is just the sauce. 16s are fantastic, but the price point's always just so high. Maybe not worth it for the bin on some people. And again, like the Zen 4 stuff's been really good too. I do have a 7700X, which is clamped down. Where is that? I think this thing is running 81 watts at the wall for 9.12 kilohash. So that thing has been treating me really well. It actually shows software power of 65 watts, but we all know that's not quite right. Or maybe that's socket power and it doesn't factor anything else in. I'm at least happy that HiveOS added support in the last beta release for Zen 4. That was really annoying how long it took for them to add AM5 support. But yeah, guys, I just want to reiterate, like, just don't throw power away. If you already have a Zen CPU, it's an awesome idea to mine on it. Even if you're not going to mine, like, this is power-saving stuff. If you're streaming and gaming on your system, chances are you're not using the entire overhead of your CPU anyway right now. So you could consider clamping the core speeds down a little bit and clamping the power, even for day-to-day use, for streaming, for gaming, and that might make a noticeable effect on your power bill. Just as much, if not more so, than like GPU mining. Stefan Wang, hi Overclocking, please make more stream. I love your videos, so much to be learned. I just don't have that much content to stream about. This one, like almost all this stuff is suggested to me either by like Discord users or by the live chat of a previous stream. So, IDK Mining, I know this is an AMD stream, but my i5 6600K will not run ZEPH to save its life. IDK Mining, that's a little strange, actually. 6600K. So I have, for sure, a 6100. Let me see if I can find that. Or what OS are you running, IDK Mining? And that's totally fine, I don't mind. Where are you, sloppy seconds? There we go. So here's a 6100, which is mining RandomX. This is mining to a NiceHash user for, a ZEPH order for them, not directly to me, but it's RandomX, so if it'll mine Monero, or if it'll mine to NiceHash, it will absolutely mine here. What I might question IDK mining is the 6600K doesn't have very much cache. Let's see here. Oh my god, yeah, so it has 6 megabytes of smart cache. You're going to have to limit that to 3 threads. So in your XMRig new configuration, you're going to want this. Which might explain why I've come to settle on this. You can run more threads on these, but I've found that the hash rate's the same or it gets worse. So your hash rate probably will be similar to this 1.036 kilohash with the 6600K. The i3 6100 is a 2-core 4-thread chip. Yes, yep. And the 6600K, I believe, is 4-core 4-thread. So you might see a little bit higher hash rate just because it has native cores to deal with that. But the cache, I believe, is the same on these two CPUs. So you're probably going to have to go into the additional miner configs. Or if you're on Windows, you're going to have to look up the actual .bat edits for that. But this documentation absolutely exists. But that's probably why. Because RandomX does lean on core cache quite a bit. So that's my 2 cents there. What is a thread? It's what the shirts are made out of, Kaiser. Yep, don't even worry about it. Sadie sometimes. Asus has Armory Crate, which allows CPU... Oh god, do not do that. Use Intel XTU if you have an Intel chip, or use Ryzen Master if you have an AMD chip, but don't do that. Do it in the BIOS. It sort of functions sometimes if your BIOS is up to date, but it's really broken, and oftentimes it will ignore crucial voltage settings. So I used to use Ryzen Master quite a bit. When I'm overclocking like the Threadripper, I'll still use it, but do not. Well, Armory Crate is just like terrible bloatware too, but don't use that. Intel, their program's called XTU. AMD, it's called Ryzen Master. Stefan Wang, I want to buy some AMD card. Any recommendations? Any resource? I would have to know what your power rate is, what project you want to mine. I don't know. If you just want like cheap brute force cards, I'd be looking at 5700s or 5700 XTs. But if you can get cheap enough 6600 XTs, those are banging. Regular 6600s slap. BC 160s used to be the play when they were cheap. Maybe they're cheap again because Dynex currently can't be mined on them. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I would have to know what you want to try to mine on it. Otherwise, like if you just want to go to all-rounder, man, RDNA 2 just slaps. These things are fantastic. But I will say, on 15 kilowatts of miners in my garage, I did a test this spring. I'm like, okay, it's warm in there, time to shut off the single thread of CPU mining. And on 15 kilowatts of rigs, shutting off the single thread of CPU mining saved me 35 watts. So I think that was like 7 or 8 kilohash. So if you already have a mining rig that has a bunch of cards on it, there's a certain load average. You can see that on Hive down here. That means like 1.4 threads of this CPU are just pretty much in use for the mining application. You can just add another mining thread onto it, which is cache heavy. So it kind of loads a different part of the CPU up, and you see very little actually power overhead. Kaiser, is the BIOS a new type of gender? I'm not sure, but you can definitely change it. 11 cents. Want to do some kapow. Oh yeah, 5700s then. Stephen Wang. That's probably what I would personally buy to do kapow on the cheap right now. I'd be paying less than $100 for a 5700 or a 5700 XT. If you're paying more than that, you should be able to get 6600s for 120, and those are way more efficient on kapow. Way lower hash rate, but way more efficient. YobaTube, welcome. Hi, do you mine Carlson coin? No, I do not. I'll leave the main dashboard up for you guys here. That's largely what I'm mining right now. Got a few time of day rigs off right now, but down here at my home, the weekends are cheap power, so they run during the weekend. 22 hereby service, welcome to chat. But yeah, I have a decent number of CPUs. I'm not at all saying that my tunes are like the creme de la creme or anything like that, but I definitely know how to save at least a few watts on an AMD CPU. So, and I do even have a 9900K going. I think that's in like the world's cheapest H410. I went into Intel XTU in Windows, and I locked the socket power to like 90 watts on that. I think that'll still do 5 or 6 kilohash too. So Intel CPUs aren't necessarily bad, but just look up how much cache they have and try to just divide that by 2, and that's the number of threads you can probably realistically run. When you start getting into 12th gen and newer with the E-cores, it's just a nightmare. So, Crypto Bedell, what is the best card on kapow? The CMP 170HX is the most efficient card I've ever tested on kapow. I think the 4090 might have had the highest hash rates. Let's take a look. Is this the 4090? God, Google Sheets is just not great. ProgPow 62 megahash. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the 4090 definitely does a higher hash rate, but you're still looking at 48 megahash at 0.251 efficiency for the CMP 170. So that's probably my kapow bet right there. That card really, really is good. Hereby service rigs look great. Aw, thanks. Kaiser, Overtech, looking for something to solo mine on a Z9. Yeah, I still haven't found anything that works properly on that. I haven't tried dropping to the single hash board yet and declocking it. I still have to do that. The Z9 lives at my garage. More of a winter project. Although, yeah, I get solo, man. I'm really not a solo miner. Sadie sometimes in chat is like the solo mining guru of the Discord. I'm just too lazy to check on statistics all the time and keep up to date on all that kind of stuff. But other than that, I mentioned 3600s and 5600s earlier. Those things are still really solid. If you get a well-binned 3600, you can get pretty close to 3900 efficiency on those. The problem is you're running motherboard VRM loss efficiencies. Hi, Jada. 21 kilowatt per hour? Man, that's a lot. What do you mean, Craig Davis? Also welcome to chat. Sadie sometimes. I dabble. Alexandra O'Dwyer, any Nexa tips? The 4090 really smacks at Nexa. I feel like the A2000 did too. Sorry, headphone users. That's probably loud as all get out. Hi. Oh, God. Oh, jeez. Jada. I can page through the sheet here in a second. Let me see. I just have to give the kitty some love so she stops bothering me. Hi, buddy. Hi. Hi, Goofy Poof. Alright, let's look through the sheet, shall we? Alright, Nexa, you said. So the CMP 50. Nexa, wow, actually 0.541, that's quite good. Nexa's 0.688 on the 170HX, yeah, wow, that's really good. Not super good on the CMP 30. Not super good on the 1660 Super. Extremely good, 0.78 on the 4090. The 4070, oh, actually really efficient on the 4070 12 gig, just very low hash rate, 0.82. 3070 Ti. I haven't actually ran the third. Oh, wow. How the hell have I not tested that card yet? It's literally sitting back there. Whoops. 0.623. Very good on a regular 3070. Reasonable on a 3060 Ti. Pretty good, actually, on an A2000, but again, very low hash rate. Not so great on a 2070. Not so great on a 2060 Super. Very bad on a 5700 XT. Let's see, 3060M. Actually, quite good on that card, wow. So the 3060M 12 gigabyte looks like that did 0.638. That's really good. What is this, 3080M? I'm guessing this is even better. Oh, about the same, 0.675. Yeah, 3070M is definitely not as good. P106, ooh. Not nearly as good. Wow, shocking. Didn't even test it on the 1060. 1070, didn't test it. And I think the rest of these are pretty much irrelevant. I believe the 3080 Ti 20 gig was actually really, really good. Yeah, 0.720, but you can't buy that card, so. I haven't done any AMD testing on Nexa, at least not the newer series cards, so. I will get to it, I promise, but I haven't done it yet. DJ, Nexa uses about the same power as Flux, so a little bit less than ProgPow. I would say it's middle of the road. So like on a 3070, Nexa uses about 100 to 110 watts, if that's at all helpful. Nexa is not Kapow, no. Kapow is 20 or 30 watts more per card at least. Craig Davis, I noticed 21 kilowatt on your Hive dashboard. Oh, sorry, I don't even look at that. Yeah, yep. That's a lot of shit. Oh, backwards, you already answered that, I'm sorry. 3070 Ti pretty decent on Nexa. Yeah, you can lock the memory down to 5000. They're just not as good as regular 3070s because of the GDDR6X. Hawk, welcome! Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you guys in SNL in just a little bit here. 20, yeah, add more 22s. I'm drinking. Let's see here. Boom. Keith Betts, very nice OCs chart. Thank you. I've been building that out for a while now, and I will continue to, because it's really nice when something new happens, and you're like, oh, crap, what was the OC for this card again? Alexandra Rodwai, thank you. I have a 3070, 3080, 3060 Ti, and 3060 rig, about 10 cards. If you can include a 1080 Ti. I sold all my 1080 Ti, so I don't have one to test. Otherwise, I would consider it. I have yet to test a 3060. I'm not exactly sure why, because I have like a metric shit pile of those things. But that's probably something I should do next. This is my bigger 3060 rig. This is where my pigeon whale status comes from. This one 3060. I don't know. That I really do need to get on that. But yeah, the fact that I've just got a 3070 Ti FTW on deck right there. Yeah. Yeah, Nexa responds very similarly on most cards to Flux OCs. I have found a couple exceptions, though, where it will just run way too much power. So typically I find a little bit higher core offset works on Nexa versus Flux. But yeah, you would want a little bit higher memory clock for a Kapow or a ProgPow, even and a little bit less core offset. So Kapow works the memory and the core a little bit harder than Equihash 1254 or Nexapow. I think Nexa's algo is just called Nexapow. So I will say I'm really looking forward to testing Fishhash, the new Ironfish algo that LollyDeb is developing, and then also looking forward to the new AMD compatible Dynex miners. I'm gonna have to run a lot of cards through that gauntlet again, but yeah. Oh yeah, I still have a couple cards on Chlor. I think I've been on that since DJ's first video about it. I'm pretty happy about that. I don't know how much I have, but some. And then the Meowcoin rigs that are on just for Panda's test. He doesn't have enough 6600s, so. I do like my AMD though. Those cards are just rock solid. Once you nail the OCs. Ah, speaking of that crap, let's go over to Panda's farm, see if his 5700 stop crashing. Nope. GPU 1 dead. Well, we're getting closer. I'm not actually at this rig, so I've just been adding 15 millivolts to it and restarting it. But this thing was real bad yesterday. It's getting a little bit better. Check how much Chlor you got, bro. I don't even remember what computer that wallet's on. It'd be hard to check. I guess I have a snapshot from last month. I can check there. Once a month I go through and trace all the holdings just to make sure I have them for tax reasons. Chlor. I have 1,150 Chlor, looks like. Alright. At the restaurant right now. Nice. Alright, Panda Rig. What you got? Rebooting? Okay. No way. We're not getting the other GPU back? Oh, hell yeah. Chlor's really $3 a token? Holy shnikes. Hold on. Is it Coin, Gecko, Chlor? Apparently I can't type for shit, but that doesn't matter. Oh, okay. Still, though, I mean, I've been mining this on like 2 GPUs. So, 1,000 times that. It's pretty good. Ah, these are Pandas. Oh, what the hell, dude? Hard reset. I think he's got a bad power cable. These are actually cards I believe he bought from Hawk. But his first rig setting up of 5700 XTs, man. Chlor was like 8 or 9 cents. I gotcha. That's still not bad. It's like $84 in Chlor. Alright, Octo. Actually, what? Screw this. It's Panda's rig. I don't care. There we go. Yeah, all the CPUs are up and mining. I've got, what, 147 kilohash on RandomX. Miranda, buyers of the Antminer X5 are probably making a killing. 212 kilohash at 1350 watts. Yeah. Yeah, if they can keep him booted. I've heard so many horror stories about just like the memory not being seated correctly on those things. They're so complicated inside, and there are so many sockets, like not even just solder junctions, just straight up sockets. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But it's nice to know that I almost have as much hash rate on my account here as an X5, just with some crusty ass CPUs. Backwards miner at Overboard Tech. Nexa algorithm is a SHA-256 plus. That's the official mix. Interesting. It's crazy how much stuff still uses SHA-256 and SHA-512 behind the banner. As long as it doesn't burn up. Alright, let's go back to the cap card here. Yep. Lots of accepted shares. She's still happy. I wonder what's going on with that 1660 Super. It's displaying out just fine, but not at full resolution. I will say, I found out the 1660 Super is 29 watts idle, just sitting in that system. I was doing the wall power and the tuning with the GPU in it so I could get into the BIOS, and then I ripped the whole thing out at the end. And I'm like, holy God, I thought my tune was terrible. Nope, turns out that GPU just draws a ton of power sitting idle, so... yeah. That's hopefully the beginning part of the videos where people actually lose their attention span and drop off, and I covered all the useful stuff on how to at least drop some power out of your Ryzen CPUs. But if you guys have any specific questions about specific Ryzen CPUs, let me know. Also, I thought about like the A520 and A320 users, but I really don't think that there are that many of those folks out there running a higher end CPU in the like the budget bargain basement motherboards. So I think it's probably safe to leave that off. Oh, Sadie and Miranda are in chat at the same time. That means Modi dance. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Very good. Alright, guys. If you have any other questions, dump them in chat now. Otherwise, I'll probably call the stream a little bit on the early side. I don't actually have anything else to cover right now, I don't think. Lick that like button, says Keith Betts. Please? I mean, you don't have to like your screen, but I'll certainly feel it if you do. Oh my. Thank you, chat. I'm probably going to hell, it's fine. Modi dance, yes. Modi's such a good boy. Oh god, I just love 3900Xs. Those things are just sexy. Thanks for swinging through, Kaiser. Yo, it's Spud. How is the Ryzen 5 5600 X3D compared to... they mine exactly the same. You don't gain any additional performance with that additional cache. The 5600G is quite a bit worse than the 5600X, just because the G has a much smaller monolithic die. So you can see here, the G's are running 4.5 kilohash, and the X is running about 6.3. So that's all down to the cache. And to the point earlier, this has nothing to do with the temperature. In 81C, it doesn't matter at all. But you can see, if you just launch a vanilla flight sheet with RandomX, or XMRig, sorry, I keep saying RandomX, it will detect how much cache is in that chip, and it will know, and it will apply the proper settings to that thing, so you get the best performance. So you can see here, it's only running 6 threads. Sheets. I really enjoy doing flight sheets. Too nice to you too as well. I just don't even... My brain's so small, it doesn't read good. So I might need help on that one, Keith Betts. But oh, no, I'm stupid. This one actually does have a custom flight sheet, but it will still automatically cut down when you launch the miner. So the developers of XMRig are clever people. Switch to Racing Stream. That's on a different computer entirely, and I have not had nearly enough to drink to use the Racing Sim tonight, so no, not today, Automatic Beats. Yo, it's Spud. Gotcha. Did I see a 3600 doing 8 kilohash? I haven't renamed that. That's actually a 3700X now, and I still might need to do a little bit of tuning on this. Occasionally, it never crashes, but it will stop accepting shares like a couple times a day. So I just have on Watchdog here, if it hasn't accepted a share in 2 minutes, I just have a reboot, and it's fine. But yeah, this is drawing 89 watts, I think, at the wall. So like 3700X is pretty solid, dude. About the same hash rate as a 5800X. Barefoot pedal cam. God damn it, Sadie. No. There is a pedal cam, just not a barefoot one. I have to wear shoes. Those pedals are intense. Backwards miner. Do a 3060 overclocking. I only have one here at my house, and it is in my HTPC. So I'll have to plan ahead for that one. Probably about some like Windows update time. Keith Betts. Nexus Satox Chlor looking good. I hope from... And God, that heart. I had some pump. I don't know. The heart's in the way. I did recently just put a rig on, or at least a few cards on Narai. So these are just P106s, but I did throw 3 P106s on Narai. I don't know much about it. I think Backwards is the one that told me to do that. But Crawlspace Modi has got some Narai going now. As a pirate, my 32-core Epic does 21 kilohash at 190 watts. That sounds about right. 3900X does 12 kilohash at just over 100. So I'd say those are still about on par. It's nice that those have such a low power limit, so you don't have to really mess with OCs too much, but I'm sure there's still a little bit of overhead left on the table. Like a Threadripper of that same era, you'd be able to do better, because they have fully unlocked voltages and clocks and things like that. Automatic beats. Take shots very quick. I do not drink liquor. Sorry. Backwards miner, 23.9, epic, 220 watts. That's got to be about the same efficiency as what he was talking about there. That's still good, but roughly 3900X good. 7000 series would absolutely curb stomp those things. I think 70 watts lower for the same hash rate there. Those do 22 kilohash at 150 watts. Cough, cough, automatic beats. i9 9940X time. Oh, God. I don't even know how much cache is in that. It's probably okay. I think those have quad channel memory. That might mine okay. But boy, the efficiency. So bad. Oh, so bad. It'd be so bad. Oh, God. I'm not even going to read this part of chat. You guys are all wild. Alright, I think I'm going to shut this machine back down, take it back out to the garage where it lives. Where are you, 3900XC? Go ahead and shut you down. Alrighty. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go get some food, and then I will see you guys all in SNL on the Misfit channel in just a little while. It's really weird only streaming for, oh good God, not even an hour, but I think we covered everything that was kind of important to cover, so no sense in streaming more when I don't really need to. Yeah, that checks out. That tracks. Anyway, if you guys have any specific Zen CPU overclocking questions, just at me in one of the other chats. I'm on Discord all the time. You have to at OvalBoardTech, and then I'll see it. So, Stefan Wang, 6600 or 6600 XT. Depends on the memory. 6600 XT Samsung or 6600 Hynix are both really good. That's way too much money though. 120 to 140 for 6600s, or like 140 to 160 for a XT. Top dollar. Good night, all set. Good night. I will see you there. Sadie, no, we got to work on your tunes. That's terrible. That's just stock. Arcs Crypto. Oh, I didn't even see you there. Have a good night, sir. 6600 ASRock. No, terrible deal. Plus you have to pay sales tax on Newegg. Don't do that. Thank you for swinging by, Sadie. I appreciate it. All right, chat.